Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to something a little bit different. So we'll just jump back on Guy Swarbrick's car there, as he currently seems to be the only one out on track for the moment. We are here for a quick test event of some different cars. We like to change things up a bit. We're always working in the background to see what works and what doesn't. So today we're giving some 156 WTCC cars a go. Quick few facts for me to reel off for you. Nearly 500 horsepower, and in race trim it's got to be just under 1,000 kilos, so these are some serious pieces of kit. We're on the Silverstone GP circuit, as the keen-eyed among you will have noticed already, and we'll be running 2 short weekends basically for this session. We'll be doing a quali, then a race, which, as you can see, owing to some technical difficulties, this quali is nearly over. We'll have a race after this, and then we'll have a repeat of the quali and the race again. So I'll be really interested actually to see how these cars cope. It's not something I've actually ever driven in a Assetto before. I've driven both the Tartus for the Formula Alpha series and the TCR car for the TCR series, but I've never driven one of these in a Assetto before. I don't have much experience in any WTCC or DTM car, to be honest. So it's as new to me as it is to some of you, I can imagine. We are heading down the Wellington Straight now with Guy Swarbrick, a lovely Martini liveried 156 here. And you can see here these cars do carry some serious speed. Coming into the... pardon me, that was my mistake. That wasn't the Wellington Straight at all, it was the Hangar Straight. Can you tell I'm out of practice? We haven't had a live stream for quite a while now. Must be said, we had a few technical difficulties, and then just when we thought we had everything sorted out, my Miso decided it wanted to have its own technical difficulties involving the brakes. That left me stranded, so haven't been able to commentate for a little while, so it's good to be back. We wouldn't usually commentate this type of thing, but I thought, just need to get back in the commentary box again and get some commentary done. As we can see here, I believe this is the car of Andrew Whitehead. Yes, it is, who is close behind Guy Swarbrick. And this will be a really good bit of experience for Andrew Whitehead, actually, because it's been a fairly empty qualifying session, as you can see. But it'll be good for Andrew to learn how these cars behave when following each other. So far, everyone's set a fairly respectable time, given that the cars are new. Everyone's just above the 2-second mark. This for me has got to be, to be honest, one of my least favourite sections of Silverstone, if I'm honest. It's highly technical, which means I'm rubbish at it. And it is the S through Brooklands into Luffield. It's just something I can never get right. And if I do get it right, I'm usually cooking the tyres. And it's not what you want around here in terms of race pace, because as soon as the tyres have got a little bit of heat in them, you're just managing for the rest of the race. Especially in cars like this, which will carry immense amounts of speeds through these... very open sections of track. I believe we still have Will Harper in the pits for the moment. I want to check out what livery he's running. He's running a Martini livery as well, and you can see there's our there is our camera car in the background there with a very, very bright black and lime green livery. It's not something you'd usually see, but it stands out nonetheless. Oh, it looks like we have... Is that Will Inglis? Yes, it is. We have Will Inglis, also in a Martini liveried 156. He's set a very good time, given he's just got in the car. So yeah, Silverstone, very good track to try out these new cars on, I reckon. They've obviously got the agility, being so light, but they also have a huge amount of power for that weight. So you can really stretch the legs down the back straights. And we've seen that Will Inglis has already found another half a second. Could be off for a good little race here. Only be 4 cars, but everyone is qualifying fairly well, I'd say, given that this is a new car. Of course, in typical WTCC fashion or DTM fashion, these cars spitting flames at every single opportunity. Not much thought went into the emissions of these things, clearly, and you love to see a little bit of action going on from the exhaust pipes of these very aggressively set up cars. Guy Swarbrick has found a couple of seconds there. He's currently having a little bit of a break, I can imagine. Can get fairly intensive, all this testing malarkey. So well-deserved break for Guy Swarbrick there, getting the new cars ready and on the server for tonight's event. Don't know if we'll be expecting a couple more drivers, maybe during the race, or maybe for the second set of the second weekend, if you will. I saw in the comms before that Rob Whitney was complaining of temperature in real life. Probably a bit too hot to do some sim racing at the moment, so even in the sim world, drivers suffering with problems of temperature. It's almost like it's Singapore. And we still have Will Harper in the pit. I think he's fairly happy with that 2:01, and he's sitting there for a little while now. Probably going to use the race as a bit of a practice session, I can imagine, if he isn't getting as much time in. We are coming to the end of qualifying now, and there we have, yes, we have Will Harper leaving the session. So we'll be joining you very shortly for the race here at Silverstone. I don't even know how long this race is going to be. It's all new to me, just as it is to you. I am very looking forward to seeing something a bit different out on track in just a few moments. Hello and welcome back to the action here at Silverstone in these 156 W2 WTCC cars. It's a little bit of an experiment for us. We've got 4 people lined up on the grid. We have Andrew Whitehead leading up on pole. We have Rob Whitney in second place. We have Guy Swarbrick in third and Will Inglis lining up on the back for this race. The lights are about to go out. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen here. Nearly 500 horsepower, just under a ton. Not quite sure how long the race is actually, to know how much fuel they're carrying, but let's just wait for the gantry to drop. And we are away. Everyone getting a reasonably good launch actually. Rob Whitney, pardon me there, Rob Whitney lighting up the back axle very well indeed. He keeps his position for now though. And we are still going to stay on the camera view with Andrew Whitehead for now. Pardon me, it's not Andrew Whitehead, it's Will Harper. We see Will Inglis diving up the side, up the inside there to try and get the move on Rob Whitney. Oh dear, and there's been a little bit of contact there between Rob Whitney. There's some interesting camera angle that the game has decided to give me on the start of the race this time around. Bit of contact, but Rob Whitney was able to keep it on the tarmac just as we can see Will Harper just walking away, keeping clear of any major damage for now. It's almost like a drone cam. So people, we're really exploring the limits of these WTCC cars here. We've got 20 minutes in this race, and if we carry on 20 minutes with this much contact there, as we see Guy Swarbrick finding an exit road, the old pitch straight. He's luckily able to carry on though. He is relegated into last position, however, and nearly 5 seconds up the road now. I'm going to try and revert the camera back to normal programming. That's not quite it. We're now inside his car. There we go. That'll do. We're on board with Will Harper then. Just 5 seconds out in front of everyone else. He's had a very clean start to this race so far. But Will Inglis and Andrew Whitehead are not that far apart, it must be said. In fact, Guy Swarbrick has recovered nicely as well. He is now trailing up the inside of Will Inglis, and hopefully for him we'll have the move done before the end of the straight. Looks like he's gone a little bit wide there. Apparently he's having a couple of technical issues I'm trying to battle with at the same time as trying to catch up with what's going on here. We might only have 4 cars on track, but there's plenty of action as we see Will Harper going off, Will Inglis going off on the inside there, riding the curbs hard. And Guy Swarbrick, I'm sure, went off somewhere. I think everyone just had a bit of an off. We're on to the next lap, however. We're only just over 2 minutes into this race, and there's always been plenty of carnage, but we really are testing the durability of these cars, it must be said. Let's go back on board with Guy Swarbrick then. He was last, less than a lap ago. Is he slowing down here? I know he's... might have just been a bit of lag. But nearly 3 seconds out in front now, we have Andrew Whitehead. Andrew Whitehead seemed to stay relatively clean in that little bit of misfortune that we saw happen before around Vale. And he's obviously promoted himself up to first as a result of that. Yeah, carnage on the previous lap. Carnage, only way to describe it. I'm going to do my best to commentate in the mix of what I can imagine will be carnage and quiet intervals while no one else is crashing with each other. We do only have 4 cars on track as we head onto the old pitch straight now. In fact, we'll just come to the end of the old pitch straight, and we are about to enter the Maggot-Beckett's complex. It's always an exciting bit of the track to watch. Got to find the perfect balance here of keeping your momentum up, but not trying to understeer and wash out too much, because you'll just lose a load of time and potentially find yourself on the wrong side of the curbs. Now, it's particularly challenging when you're side by side with another car. That isn't happening on this lap, but I imagine it will be happening soon enough, given what we saw on lap 1. 162 miles an hour, pardon me, it is 162 miles an hour in that speed trap. It's an impressive amount of speed from these saloon cars. Nearly 500 horsepower from a 2-litre engine. Oh, gorgeous looking cars, it must be said as well. The 156, I do think, especially the facelift 156, has got to be one of Alfa's finest works. Rob Whitney there setting a Fastest lap of the race so far, or that however has been invalidated by now because Will Harper had an absolute flyer with a 2:03.6. That'll be a fairly good quali lap from what we saw in quali 1 before. Well, Guy Swarbrick is now under pressure from Will Harper. And he's cracked under pressure. He's gone a little bit wide there. Will Harper's going to cut to the other side of the track and just try and carry the speed to just get the overtake done. He didn't get it done as early as he would have wanted. But on the exit of the corner, he just seems to be carrying much more speed, much more stability as well. Impressive amount of pace from Will Harper so far. All these Martini liveried cars, it's confusing me slightly. I'm just having to go off numbers. Usually our liveries are all... I mean, I should be going off numbers anyway, but usually our liveries are hugely different. We've got a huge amount of variety. That isn't the case this time. And, of course, in case we don't have another opportunity next week, I should use this time now to promote National Alpha Day, which is happening in just over a week's time. The racing leagues will be there. We have a truck as part of the Chris Not Insurance Challenge. Try your mettle on our sim racing rigs in our TCR cars, I believe, around this Silverstone circuit. Get a good enough time, you can see yourself winning your own sim racing kit. I will, of course, be there on the day commentating for your viewing pleasure. And I believe the finale will be as live as well. So even if you cannot make it to National Alpha Day, you will be able to enjoy some of the action from Bicester on that day. Will Harper is absolutely flying at the moment. Now less than a second between him and Andrew Whitehead. Will Harper really enjoying this car, it seems. As he rides the curbs on the exit of the club corner. 2:02.3. Will Harper is absolutely flying. As we head into the village complex in just a moment. He's not close enough yet to put a serious attack towards Whitehead, but he will be putting him under pressure. As he dives to the outside to have a look in, see if he can get a move done. He doesn't for the moment, and we are now down the Wellington Straight, where it looks like he's actually got a better exit and will in fact overtake. If Whitehead is brave in the braking into Brooklands, I'm about to say he may be able to claw that position back. However, it looks like Will Harper is just a little bit too far out in front. Don't count Whitehead out yet, though. In fact, don't count out Guy Swarbrick or Will Inglis for that matter. We've seen just how quickly it can go wrong so far in this race. We're not far away from halfway through the race already. These quick cars are making this race go by very quickly indeed. See Guy Swarbrick in the background there, using the old GT tactic of keeping the headlights on as a bit of an intimidation tactic. Not so sure if it works here in the bright sunshine. The bright sunshine which we are actually currently enjoying in Britain for once. Yeah, Will Harper absolutely flying as we see Andrew Whitehead kicking up a bit of dust in the background there. I imagine he is pushing hard in an attempt to claw back some time against Will Harper. However, I don't know if it's just him gelling well with the car or is it just a case of setup. Obviously, during this test session, I believe we do have open setup. Maybe Will Harper just found a very good setup for this Silverstone circuit, but he is progressing very nicely indeed in this 156 WTCC. He's taking a couple of liberties with track limits onto the Hamilton Straight there, it must be said. But I'm in awe at the times that he is currently pulling. I mean, they are quality times. Admittedly, they've now got a bit more experience under the belt in these cars. Well, I say a bit more, they've got 10 minutes more experience under the belt in these cars, but a 2:02 pretty much dead is nothing to turn your head at. And we just go towards the back of the field now. It looks like Will Inglis is maybe not gelling perfectly well with the car for now. However, I wouldn't count him out in the next mini weekend coming up. As I alluded to just a moment ago, might not have been many laps taken in these cars so far, but I imagine every one of them is vitally important, and he will be learning more and more about this car as time goes on. Ice Warbrick then settling in nicely after an aggressive start to the race from everyone, it must be said. He's not too far behind Andrew Whitehead now. Will Harper is slowly gapping the rest of the field. Just an impressive turn of pace from Will Harper here. Kicking up a little bit of dust then as we head through the Maggots and Beckett's complex. You see these cars in typical touring car fashion absolutely bottoming out to the nth degree. Really, there's not much suspension travel on these anyway, but there also isn't that much ride height, so imagine that bodywork, as you can see. A set, of course, the defying laws of physics there. The tyres actually phasing through the front end of the car. And you see his brakes coming into stow, getting absolutely red hot. Really riding the curbs quite aggressively there. You won't want to be doing that too many times. The suspension won't thank you. But he managed to keep it composed, and he's got 4 seconds on the car behind now. 201.6, so even with a little bit of off-track excursion and nearly getting it very wrong over that curb, he's set an exceptional lap there with a 201.6. Yes, impressive pace from Will Harper so far. Engine screaming now as we head down the Wellington Straight. Impressive pieces of engineering these cars are, really. I mean, it's probably about as far as you could push what starts out as a regular road car before it starts becoming too unrecognisable. I mean, you look at the track width on these and just how heavily built the engines are. They're already a far cry from their road counterparts, which are themselves very good, actually. 156 is criminally underrated. I've never actually owned one. Maybe one day. But these race cars, I think, doing the road car justice. 5 seconds now for Will Harper out in front. It must be said, unless a serious mistake comes in, he has this one in the bag. It'll be a very impressive performance for him if on his first outing in this car this year he bags a win. That should hopefully, if we decide to use his car in competition further on in the future, give him a huge bag of confidence just, and give us some good competition in the races in the future. The brakes are absolutely getting red hot there, much as they did on my Mito but a week ago. See Harper catching it just as he lands there. Probably about as high as, I mean, that's an aggressive curb. That's a curb that an F1 car would wince at. Never mind something based on a road car. Ice Warbrick actually is doing a very impressive job of keeping Andrew Whitehead honest. Be really crucial experience for him here, learning how he can follow another fellow 156 in race conditions. A 20-minute race will put a fair amount of fuel load into these cars. They are very light regardless, but yeah, be very good experience to learn how the car behaves as the race progresses, especially behind another car. Of course, these cars aren't the most aero-laden, but it does make all the difference, especially for these high-speed corner complexes that we do have here in abundance at Silverstone. In fact, as we see Will Harper gaining a 7-second advantage on Andrew Whitehead now, it must be said that Ice Warbrick is ever so slightly closing in on Andrew Whitehead. So, as this race enters its final stages, we could be on for a good little fight. See Guy Swarbrick also exploring the depths of track limits there. And now as we watch Andrew Whitehead just attacking curb, but probably a little bit more than he would have wanted to, through Maggots and Beckett. You see Guy Swarbrick now getting within half a second of Andrew Whitehead. And he will indeed have a little bit of a slipstream down the Hanger Straight. And if he's very brave under braking heading into Stowe, no, it looks like he's going to back out of it just for now. It's probably the sensible option. Around the outside of Stowe is by no means an easy overtake to do, especially in a car that you haven't had much experience in. So I think a wise choice from Guy Swarbrick to back out there. He's keeping it calm, keeping it collected. He's not going overly aggressive, not overcooking it, not attacking the curbs as hard as Andrew Whitehead is, but maybe he doesn't need to. Maybe he knows that Andrew Whitehead is bound to get it wrong, or is bound to lose a little bit of time if he goes too aggressive. I don't know what the tyre deck's going to be like on these cars, unfortunately. It's something I'm going to have to potentially ask the drivers in the interval between this weekend and the next one, which I say it's a weekend, it's about 5 minutes. And there is that mistake I was talking about. Andrew Whitehead has overcooked it a little bit too much, heading into Abbey, I believe that was. It may or may not have been Village. My apologies. Yeah, it was Village. But yeah, there's that mistake that Guy Swarbrick was looking for, and now we see Guy Swarbrick taking second position. Very nicely done. Very good couple laps from Guy Swarbrick there. He didn't make really any mistakes, and just let Andrew Whitehead do the work for him, and that has paid dividends. I wouldn't count Andrew Whitehead out, though. We still have a few laps of this race remaining, and I am sure that Andrew Whitehead is going to collect his thoughts and come up with a challenge to Guy Swarbrick towards the end of this race. So yeah, I will have to ask the drivers about how they are finding this car, but has to be said, everyone seems to be reasonably comfortable for now. I mean, sure, there have been mistakes here and there, and maybe people are off the pace just a little bit more than they would have liked. But, yeah, everyone seems reasonably comfortable given this is the first race. We have had a little bit of contact. 165 miles an hour down the Hanger Straight for Will Harper there. It's a good bit of pace. I wonder if that's just down to fuel load being lower. If it makes that much of a difference on the exit of Chapel. Be interesting to see. I can't wait for the... Also see Will Harper going a little bit deep on the brakes there. Not too much time lost for him, fortunately. He still has a bit of a gap to the car behind, so he can rest easy for now. We won't want that to happen too many more times, though, or we could see his so far secure first place down the drain. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to hear what the drivers have to say about this car so far. And I will try to get that for you in the interval. And just as I alluded to earlier, there's now about half a second separating Andrew Whitehead and Guy Swarbrick, as Will Inglis sets his best, a respectable 2:06.5. Heading into Brooklands now. Andrew Whitehead taking a different line to Guy Swarbrick there, interestingly. Andrew Whitehead seems to be sticking it on the outside more often. I wonder if that's a tyre preservation thing, or if maybe he went and he braked a little bit too late, or maybe he just believes that is the quicker line. Maybe just his driving style, maybe the setup. But Guy Swarbrick kind of hugging the inside a lot more there than Andrew Whitehead was. He has lost a little bit of time to Guy Swarbrick for now. But so far there isn't much splitting these 156s. I almost said 159s there. We do have a 159 on offer to us, which would be interesting to see. Just these facelift 156s don't look that far from a 159. Two very beautiful designs indeed. That's one of the glorious things about commentating over the AROC racing leagues, is that you get to stare at some lovely alphas while you are commentating. There are far worse views, especially when you're on a good track. As we just catch Will Harper heading through the chicane just after Vale, keeping it a lot more tidy than he has done on the past few go-rounds of Silverstone. That's all you need to do now. He's got 10 seconds. He could probably afford to maybe even back out of it a bit if he wants to. But that wouldn't be in the racing spirit. And he has had immense pace so far, and I'm sure he wants to carry that on through the end of this race and into the next mini weekend. As we see Andrew Whitehead diving on the brakes towards Guy Swarbrick. I'll have to just double check to see that that didn't affect him too much. It didn't. Oh, I say that as he has a little bit of an excursion. That sees him pointing the wrong direction, using all that power to get him pointing the correct direction again. We'll have to Not quite sure what happened there, to be honest. The camera angle didn't catch it too well. I think he dived a little bit too late onto the brakes into the village, and maybe he was just carrying a bit too much speed into the loop, which saw him have to kind of attack the curbs in order to make it around the bend, and as we saw, it didn't go to plan for Andrew Whitehead there. So unless Geiss Robrick has an error of his own, which is very plausible for the top two drivers, given that the tyres are probably falling off a little bit by now as the timer hits 0, and this will be the last lap of this race. It is not out of the question for a couple of mistakes to creep in. So we will stay with the leader then, heading down the Hanger Straight on the final lap of this actually surprisingly interesting test race. We've only had 4 cars on track, but I've actually enjoyed watching these 156s go around. I've been quite impressed by how comfortable everyone seems. As we saw at the start of the race, everyone was keen to get racing. Doesn't matter what they're in, they will have a go at each other. As we watch Will Harper head through the chicane, a little bit of oversteer as he exits, and through Club and onto the Hamilton Straight. Will Harper takes victory in this first test race in these 156 WTCC cars. Very well deserved race win for Will Harper there. He had immense pace so far. And Geiss Warbrick capitalising on a couple of mistakes from Andrew Whitehead. He was 4th at one point. He ends up taking home 2nd. Very well deserved from Geiss Warbrick there. And Andrew Whitehead rounds out the podium. Unfortunate couple of mistakes crept in towards the end there. That saw him lose 2nd position, but nevertheless a very good drive from Rob Whitney. Pardon me, I've been calling Rob Whitney Andrew Whitehead the entire race. So to both Andrew Whitehead and Rob Whitney, I would like to formally apologise. You can tell I'm out of practice. I will have to bring that one up. That is my bad. So congratulations to Rob Whitney on 3rd position as we watch Will Inglis cross the line to take home 4th position there. Well, an exciting first race for these 156 WTCCs. Now that the driver's got a bit of experience under their belts, I am thoroughly looking forward to the next mini weekend. Join you in just a moment. Welcome back, folks. We have been in the qualifying session for a few minutes now, and as you can see, we're in a slightly different car. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But we're just having a couple of issues with stream graphics and the control system that allows me to actually watch what's going on in qualifying. So as soon as they have fixed themselves, I will join you in with the action. And welcome back to the action, folks. As you can see, well, we finally got underway with qualifying, and we have also got underway with a new car. Something I failed to mention during the previous mini weekend is we will be switching up cars during this little test event. As we see Will Harper getting a little bit of a swapper on over the curbs there. We have switched to the 155 Ti V6 legendary DTM car. Absolutely. I mean, just listen to it. I'll shut up for a second. Need I say more? These are beasts, it must be said. They have A very old school high revving 2.5 litre V6 and 4-wheel drive. They dominated back in the day, and we are bringing them back perhaps for our own use. It will be much more of a challenge, I think, than the previous 156, which I had a little chat with the drivers, and they noted that, yeah, as I was saying in the race, the car felt very planted, very good. Will Inglis noted that he really played with the setup a bit too much, and ended up with something that was much slower, which is something that you've got to consider with these open setups and on new cars. It can be so tempting to try and find time and then setup, but if you really mess it up, you won't be doing yourself any favours. And I imagine, he felt that on the 156, but I imagine the drivers will have to be even more cautious on this 155. It really is a tricky beast. It's slightly heavier than the 156. It also has it's a little bit less power, but it's also got the added, well, I was going to say benefit, but added complication of 4-wheel drive, which I can imagine are making the dynamics of the car fairly interesting through some of these corners, especially over the curbs in particular. We've seen a couple of times. I can imagine it really can be a bit of a pain. It's a very old school 4-wheel drive system, obviously. Old school car. If you attack the curbs too aggressively in these, I imagine they'll upset the balance fairly easily. 155, obviously, as you can see there, as I mentioned on the 156, 155 is a car famous for spitting flames as well. So much so that the actual texture pack for the car from Assetto Corsa itself includes a bit of carbon build-up on the exit of the exhaust there, because it's bound to happen with these things anyway. So we will have we're having another 20-minute qualifying, as Will Harper sets a 2-minute 20. That is the first time on the board so far. Unfortunately, the board is currently non-existent on my screen. Let's hope that returns for the end of the race. Pardon me, for the end of quali and for the race. Notice a couple of people locking up as well. These cars must be really, really tricky things to drive. They probably feel like they had it easy now in the 156 in comparison. Because I imagine with that little bit of extra weight and the 4-wheel drive, the balance of this car must be so hard to pinpoint. It must be moving about all over the shop under braking. But let's see, even with that lockup, will he improve in Sector 1? He does, ever so slightly. Just 0.03 of a second improvement there. It's something good to build on now as his lap carries on. We see the car overseeing ever so slightly, and he's correcting it well with a bit of braking there. Through Brooklands now we have way more oversteer, and he's pointing the wrong direction, so he'll want to collect his thoughts, see where he's gone wrong. Getting ready for another quick lap. He may be the only driver who's got a time on the board so far, I'm not sure. Be very handy if the timing board could fix itself. I will take, if we don't have it working for qualifying, I will take the gap between the quali and the race to get it working again. In fact, let's just go old school. So we do have 2 times on the board at the moment. Will Harper's 2:20, which we saw, and then we have a 2:22 from Rob Whitney. I don't feel like anyone's got a very quick lap in for the moment. These are a tricky car, and I imagine everyone is still getting to grips with it. We don't have liveries this time around as well, which would have been okay had we had the timing board. Don't tell everyone, but that one was my bad. In my efforts to fix it before I went live for quali, it looks like I've just disabled the timing board, and that is my own fault there. So applause all around for me, if you will. We will have a timing board, which will help immensely with the fact that all deliveries are the same for now. If we do go ahead with this championship, we will, as ever, have a wide variety of liveries on track, which is something I love to see. Just see there in the bottom right-hand corner, when we go to that interior shot, you see the old-school PS2 ports they look like. Really dates this car quite well. Of course, this thing was at the height of technology when it came out. It was a monster. Oh, good. We have some times on the board now. We can see Will Harper is still the fastest, and there is a bit of a smaller gap between Rob Whitney, not Andrew Whitehead, Rob Whitney. I will probably get that wrong at some point in the race again, so to both of those drivers, I do apologise. Just hearing that engine screaming there, heading down the hanger straight. Mighty impressive. Well, because of our timing screwing woes, we have been I was going to swap camera then. Assetto's had other ideas. Is Will Harper the only person? Will Harper, I think, is the only person lapping at the moment. Maybe Guy Swarbrick's out as well, but he hasn't set a time, so he won't show up on our board. And Will Harper comes to the end of his outlap now. We'll stay on board with him. We have no other choice. And we will watch him head through Silverstone with a bit more experience under his belt in this car now. Oh good, we have the time screen back. How helpful. A little bit of lock under braking there. Into Village for Will Harper there. The brakes must be so hard to judge in this car. See the front axles, discs glowing red hot. Because you would have thought there's one benefit to this all-wheel drive system is the weight is probably better placed than you would otherwise expect. It could be a setup thing. It could be maybe the brake balance just isn't in the sweet spot yet. These being a tricky car, and these being the first few laps these drivers have done in said tricky car, we can't expect a good setup to show itself yet, but I'm sure by the time that we are using these in competition, if we do, they will be ready for some seriously quick laps. The old school era really does complement the 155 styling very well. I've got to admit, the 155 probably isn't my favourite. That era of Alpha styling is probably, and this is strong coming from a Mito driver, I admit. It's probably not my favourite era of Alpha styling. But it does complement all of the old school, massive amounts of aero nose, mad exhaust pipes. Complements the styling very well. It looks purposeful. I like it. And again, much like the 156, this is a new kind of car, a new kind of category for me to commentate on. So I am thoroughly looking forward to the next race, especially as how well the last race went as well. The drivers enjoyed the last race as well. Looked like a very positive feedback all around, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we see the 156 in future again. We can see, yeah, there must be a bit of brake balance sitting at the back as well, because the rear brakes aren't exactly staying cool either. But we will, now that we have the option, join some other drivers as they head through the lap. Will Inglis entering. That's an excellent view on the camera there. As Will Harper, I should have stayed with him, as he set a 218.7. Will Inglis is now heading through Magnus Beckett's. Looks to be a bit of a slow lap. Maybe he's warming his tyres up, so we'll join him in just a moment. And we have switched camera. I know you can't tell just for now. We have switched camera to Rob Whitney as he comes to the end of this lap. Pardon me, it's not the end of this lap at all. It's the old pit straight. Wasn't even around for the old pit straight, but I keep thinking it's the start of a new lap. Guy Swarbrick has set a time of a 2:21.5. He is carrying his typical Martini livery, as we saw in the 156s. As ever with any Martini liveried car, really looking good. Shout out to Elliot Mitchell of the Mito Register with his own little Martini liveried Mito, which we will be seeing on the Kerber Sprint Circuit this Friday. If you're a Mito enthusiast, keep your eyes peeled on all the AROC social media. We will be enjoying ourselves on the Kerber Sprint Circuit with a bunch of Mitos. It'll be interesting to see how many of them have some form of power steering failure or something like that. But anyway, back to some quick cars. We have Will Harper out in front still with a 2:18.7. Then a bit of a gap behind him. Guy Swarbrick takes second, and not too far behind him we have Will Inglis. He is much more like it in terms of pace than he was in the 156s, owing to those setup miscalculations that he was having in the first mini weekend. In fact, Will Harper has been finding himself a lot of pace in these saloon cars. He has been lapping very nicely indeed, and behind him the cars are fairly close together, so we could still be on for a good little race here, I can imagine. I think there's about 420 horsepower, and obviously, you know, we've got old school gearbox, old school four-wheel drive system, old school aero. There will be some losses down the straight compared to the 156, so these will lap a little bit slower, but they are very good to watch nonetheless. Heading into Stowe now then, with Guy Swarbrick. Looks like he's probably on the edge of where you want to brake, really. Before you're on the wrong side of the curbs. And we're about to conclude the timing for this qualifying session. So these will be everyone's last laps, as Will Harper confirms that a 2:18.7 will be the quickest for him today. A very good lap indeed in these new cars. Guy Swarbrick couldn't get a little bit on track limits there. That should be okay. 2:21.9, it's slower anyway. So that 2:21.5 will remain for him. We have Will Inglis at the moment. It doesn't look like... I think this is either an outlap or an in-lap from a previous lap. Maybe a bit of an incident involved somewhere. However, he won't be improving on his time unless there is a glitch on my end. He'll remain in third. And we have Rob Whitney lapping at the moment, who is currently fourth. He could jump himself up the grid nicely if he's found around a second or so. So much more simple than modern racing cars on that interior there. It really is just the driver, the steering wheel, the pedals, the gearbox, and nothing else to focus on, really. Immense change from the touring cars of today. As we see, very oversteery Rob Whitney there. That will conclude his qualifying challenge for now. So we have Will Harper on pole, Guy Swarbrick in second, Will Inglis in third, and Rob Whitney in fourth. We will join you with the action in the race shortly. Welcome back to the action here at Silverstone. We are in 155 Ti V6s here for this second test weekend. The race is about to commence. Will Harper has put it on pole with another impressive qualifying performance. Let's see if we can carry on that pace into the race. We have Guy Swarbrick landing up second. I'll have to double check. My bad, I cannot remember who is in third at the moment. The liveries are a little bit confusing, but the gantry is about to be lit anyway, and we'll be underway shortly. Let's see these four-wheel drive launches from these impressive old-school touring cars. And the lights are out. These V6s wailing on the start line there. Looks like Will Inglis has had a very good launch. Guy Swarbrick losing out on that launch, I'd say, unfortunately for him. But nevertheless, we still have Will Harper out in front for the moment. Will Inglis has promoted himself up into second position for now. And Andrew Whitehead close behind in third. Guy Swarbrick really losing out on that start a little bit. And we see him just barreling off into the distance there in the reverse view camera. He's managed to get it back on the tarmac though, so he hasn't lost out too much time. Will Harper is slowly eking out a little bit of an advantage on the cars behind. But there's about to be some close battling for second position now between Will Inglis and Rob Whitney. Rob Whitney has took the inside line through Brooklands there, and it worked out a lot better than the line that Will Inglis took. However, it does mean that for Luffield, Will Inglis now has the inside line, and on the exit there, you just see it's edged out ever so slightly onto the old pitch straight. See Rob Whitney enjoying the scenery just outside the track limits there on the curb. He has to be careful, he doesn't want to ride the curbs too much in these cars, so we saw in qualifying they don't respond well to it. Into Maggots and Beckett's then, with just a train of four cars going for the moment, as it looks like Will Harper got a little bit of oversteer there, heading into Maggots, and we see Will Inglis also getting quite a bit of oversteer. And he will, in fact, be heading off through Beckett. And that will, unfortunately, promote him into last place as the field was quite close. So, shame for Will Inglis there. Just got it a little bit wrong through one of arguably the most technical part of the circuit. And that will see him enjoying a recovery drive for the rest of this race now. That has relieved the pressure from Will Harper a little bit as he heads through Stowe. He's got a little bit of a gap again as we see Rob Whitney having to run a little bit wide, carried a bit too much speed through Stowe there. I imagine these cars behave very differently to the 156 that they were just in but a moment ago. Just a gorgeous engine noise from these wailing V6s as he heads down the Hamilton straight now. We have a little bit of an equal gap forming between these three drivers who have yet to have a major incident. Will Harper, as he showed, as he demonstrated in the 156 and demonstrated in qualifying so far, seems to have really got quite comfortable with these saloon cars. They are treating him well, he's treating them well, and he is being rewarded with some very good race pace. Nearly a quarter way through this race already. Only 4 cars on the grid, but I've thoroughly enjoyed this test session so far. As you see, Rob Whitney probably getting a little bit deeper under the brakes than he would have wanted into Brooklands. No ill effects though, it wasn't disastrous, but it's something I'll have to imagine he'll be a little bit more cautious of next time around, unless he's really pushing to try and catch back up to Will Harper. However, with nearly 4 seconds interval between him and Harper, I am sure he'd much rather spend his time settling into his own race, keeping Guy Swarbrick behind, and hopefully not having a repeat of the last race, because actually the order of the field at the moment is identical to the closing stages of the last race. However, on the last couple of laps, we saw Andrew Whitehead, we saw a mistake creep in, and that permitted Guy Swarbrick to overtake and take home second position. And as I did at around this point in the previous race, I would like to take the opportunity now as we see, oh dear, we had an incident from Andrew Whitehead. Never mind, we have... Oh, apologies that I missed that there. That now sees not Andrew Whitehead, Rob Whitney. I will keep making that mistake until the end of this test session. We now see Rob Whitney in 4th. Just looks like a chapel here. Maybe carried a bit too much speed, got a little bit of oversteer, and that saw him spinning out and taking 4th. So now we have Guy Swarbrick promoted up into 2nd. About a 5-second gap now separates him and Will Harper. We have about another 8 Oh dear, as we join Will Inglis, who is having his own spin. Where is this happening? This is happening at Stowe. It is, and that will see Rob Whitney taking back the bottom podium position, and we'll see Will Inglis relegated back into 4th. Looks like the tyres got a little bit hot on Will Inglis's car there. Just trying to head through chicane after Vale. It's not even carrying that much speed, and the rear end just snapped on him. So he'll probably have to spend the next couple of laps getting the tyres back into a good usable condition and then limping it home for the rest of the race. Hopefully capitalising on maybe some other people's mistakes. He could find himself with the field yet. But as we just saw on our lap, anything can change. So we now have Will Harper out in front, about 5 seconds out in front of Guy Swarbrick. Guy Swarbrick's actually found a little bit of pace there. He was just over 5 seconds behind this time a lap ago. So good job to Guy Swarbrick there. Then in 3rd position, a few seconds down, we have Rob Whitney, who is recovering after that incident he had at Chapel last lap. And then following an incident at Stowe and at the chicane, where he very nearly lost it again, we have Will Inglis in 4th. These cars do look like tricky beasts. So, as I was saying before we had a little bit of action on track, I will take the opportunity to promote the National Alpha Day event that is happening in just over a week's time. It will be a good one. We have a huge number of Alfa Romeo cars and other Italian cars I can imagine to look at. Rumour has it it'll be GTA M there. Whether or not that is true, I am not sure. But in addition to that, the AROC Racing Leagues will have their own truck with some sim rigs set up. So if you fancy trying out a bit of sim racing action, if you haven't been able to at home during the COVID-19 pandemic, or something you're exploring getting into, why not use that as a good opportunity for some sim racing experience? If you do well enough as part of the Chris Not Insurance Challenge, you could see yourself going home with some sim racing equipment. So come along to the AROC Racing League's truck, where I will be commentating throughout the day, and enjoy some racing action. It looks like Will Harper is struggling with tyre temps, maybe a little bit there, some oversteer in this four-wheel drive car as he heads through club now. We will, in fact, I believe the finale will be live on YouTube as well, so if you can't make it to National Alpha Day, you will be able to have an insight into some of the action that will be taking place throughout the day. Guy Swarbrick, following Will Harper's couple of mistakes. We see a lock-up from Will Harper there. They have been less common than they were in qualifying in the race, it must be said. But Will Harper has let one creep in there, and that now sees Guy Swarbrick less than 5 seconds behind him. So it's not something to monitor too much now. He just needs to keep calm and collected and run his own race. But towards the end, maybe we could have a little bit of on-track action between these two. So the field is spreading out separately, spreading out a little bit now. The time between Will Harper and Guy Swarbrick staying a little bit consistent for the moment, as it is between all the positions really. But that is I have no fear for that though, because if I can't commentate on what's happening on track, you can just listen to these glorious V6s. Excellent soundtrack. As we see some of the flames on the overrun there heading into Abbey. Pardon me, it's not Abbey at all. It's my mistake. That was Cops. Of course it was Cops. Because we have Maggers and Beckett's coming up now. But apparently I'm a stickler for the old pit straight. It's something I'll never be able to get rid of, apparently. It's something I need to get rid of because I believe we are running at Silverstone for National Alpha Day. Which is a lovely circuit, and it's a challenging circuit, very technical, very high speed. Looking forward to it. So these cars are a little bit down on power, but obviously much earlier aero tech, much earlier drivetrain tech means that I think there are probably about 70 to 80 horsepower down, given whether or not you're on quali trim or race trim. But as you can see there, about 20 mile an hour delta between the 156 and the 155. So it looks like Guy Swarbrick's gone a little bit deep on the brakes there and just managed to keep it on track as he heads through club, and we enter the halfway point of this race. As we see Guy Swarbrick entering Village there. One of the challenges of a four-wheel drive system is instantly you'd think that it would just provide you more grip and a bit more stability. However, in this type of racing, when you're pushing the cars to the absolute edge of grip, of balance, of what the car is capable of, a four-wheel drive system is by no means the most forgiving thing on the edge. It's so easy to get it wrong, and you'll either have massive amounts of understeer or huge oversteer that will just take you off track wherever it feels. I imagine that is a huge part of the challenge of driving these 155 cars. It looks like Rob Whitney has lost a little bit of time behind Guy Swarbrick again. If I don't get the chance to speak to the drivers after this race, I can imagine their feedback will not be as positive as it was towards the 156. I imagine they will think it has been a much more technical car to drive, which is something we like to watch, you know, as good as that 156 was very good to watch. But there is something to be said about a car that is challenging and really pushes drivers to the edge of their abilities. Of course, you don't want it to be too much like that, because it'll just be people fighting the car for the whole race. It'll be basically 1980s, early 1990s Formula 1, where it was just a driver strapped to a rocket ship. They are Martin Brundle's words, not mine. But as we see Rob Whitney just going in a little bit wide through Maggott and Beckett's there. A little bit of rallycross never hurt anyone. And he has regained composure into Chapel now. So not too much time lost. Won't affect his race too much. I imagine he'll just be using this as experience now, just basically treating it as practice laps. So it looks like, in fact, it looks like we've missed Guy Swarbrick having a bit of an off. He has to pit maybe, as he got serious damage. He may be retiring from the race, unless he can... Maybe the tyres could be gone. It'll be interesting to find out from him later on what happened. Doesn't look like to be any major cosmetic damage from this camera now as we go past my camera car. So I can only presume it's something akin to tyres. Maybe a spin out has seen him, or a lockup has seen him flat spot, or just completely cook the tyres. However, he is pitting now, and that will allow Rob Whitney to retake second position, as it looks like he's struggling a little bit with the tyres as well. Somebody I haven't been on board with for a little while now is Will Harper, who has just been driving a very, very good, very sensible, very calm race, it must be said. We'll stay aboard now to see how his car is treating him, as we are not too far from the final kind of 30% of this race. Yeah, very much enjoyed commentating over this test session so far. Something a little bit different. Something I hope to see more of. Obviously, I'm more than happy to do more of this type of commentary. It's something, you know, that is going on in the background constantly. I was looking to tweak and evolve the racing action that you see here on YouTube, Facebook, that type of thing. If you do have any suggestions, if you are a regular viewer, we would love to hear them, of course. Yes, it looks like following Guy Swarbrick's pit, it looks like he will unfortunately be relegated to last position. However, if he has put new tyres on and has got a car that's in good working order, within the next 6 minutes he could provide a good challenge for Will Inglis. So we could see some action between them. And in fact, never mind between the next 6 minutes, it looks like he's going to be comfortably within half a second of him as he heads into Copse now. Both drivers going extremely wide there through Copse, as Will Harper has to pit. I can only presume that is owing to tyres. These cars with four-wheel drive, I imagine, are really, especially if they're the old school 80s, 90s DTM slicks, I imagine that they are putting some serious pressure for these tyres, and they are not liking it. even in the 50 minutes of racing that we had so far. That will be the only stop, if there is, for tyres that we have. So Will Harper will for now forfeit the lead. So that leaves the only drivers who haven't pitted as Rob Whitney and Will Inglis. So could have a little bit of strategy here coming in. It's not something I've been able to commentate on much so far. However, if Rob Whitney or Will Inglis feel that they have enough pace, they might try and extend this stint as late as possible. Maybe they're on different compounds, something I didn't get. In fact, I say maybe they're on different compounds. I can check. And yes, we see that Will Inglis is on the medium tyre. So if he's lucky, he could carry on to the end of the race and not pit, which could pay off hugely for him. As Guy Swarbrick, I think, has an instant there. Well, Will Inglis has kept Guy Swarbrick behind for now. Oh dear, what has happened there? Don't know what to make of that collision there. Maybe a bit of lag. Maybe it looked like Will Inglis almost tried to get out of the way in some. Not sure, and just slammed on the brakes to let Guy Swarbrick past. Maybe an earlier collision had happened. However, I was saying that Will Inglis may have the opportunity to fight with the rest of the field. I imagine after that instant, the car is going to be pretty wounded. His tyres are going to be overheated, and he's probably too far behind now within the next 4 minutes to make that back up without pitting. Will Harper, after pitting, is now only half a second behind Rob Whitney, and we're putting him under immense pressure on those fresh soft tyres now. Less than 2 cents separating now. I imagine Will Harper's going to try and make this look as easy as possible as we head through the Maggots-Beckett's complex. Will Harper not apexing quite as early as Rob Whitney. Maybe Rob Whitney is struggling with tyres now, as we saw Guy Swarbrick have those struggles. Looks like electing to pit for fresh softs has worked quite well for Will Harper. He's going to go round the outside at Stowe. It hasn't worked for him though, hasn't worked at all. And he's lost a bit of speed going off the track there, and that allows Rob Whitney to take back first position. This race has turned round for Rob Whitney, it must be said. He was so far behind, but this little pit window that we have had in the past couple of laps has turned the race on its head just a little bit. Now Will Harper is over a second behind him, with not that much time left in the race. If he can defend well enough, we could be on for a win for Rob Whitney here. Will Inglis has stayed a little bit too far behind to provide challenge again to Guy Swarbrick. Guy Swarbrick himself lapping well, but just over 10 seconds behind these two lead cars here. Will Harper is approaching Rob Whitney again as we head onto the Wellington Straight. Screaming 2.5 litre V6s of these old school DTM cars. Just an old school high revving engine is a sound that is unfortunately not all that present in motorsport anymore, as the world cracks down on emissions and seeks to make internal combustion more and more efficient so that it may carry on into the future, and let's hope that it does. But we do have to pay immense amount of respect to these glorious old school engines, as Will Harper will be paying respect to his very powerful V6 right now. It is helping him immensely down the old pitch straight as we head into Cops. No one electing to go as wide as we have seen previously. Keeping up a good bit of speed. Will Harper around the outside gets the overtake done through Maggots. And if he aces the next few corners, or if Rob Whitney makes a mistake like that and gets a bit of a swapper on, these four-wheel drive cars being so hard to judge, a bit of oversteer crept in as Rob Whitney went to enter Beckett's. Unfortunately, that has unravelled his defence of first position, it must be said, and now Guy Swarbrick is not too far behind, however, as we will be heading on to the final lap in just a moment. If he keeps it on the track, he should be securing himself second position in this race. So we have learned that these cars really are not easy to drive. They're a bit of a stark contrast to the 156 we had but a moment ago. It might only be one digits difference between the 155 and the 156, but they are from a different era totally, and they drive like two totally different cars, as we have seen. Of course, two classes of car as well, there is that to consider. As we see Guy Swarbrick taking an interesting line through the chicane there, electing to use the gravel approach, and that will not be doing his race any favours, but he will still should be able to secure a nice podium position for himself, as he did in the previous race. Of course, there are only 4 cars on the grid, but nevertheless, it has been a reasonably action-packed race nonetheless. So we will stay with the leader now as he heads down the Wellington Straight. Let's see if any mistakes creep in on his very last lap. Now, he is on reasonably fresh tyres, so he doesn't have that excuse as he heads into Brooklands. You've got about a 10-second gap to the car behind. And it looks like pitting was the correct strategy for this race, unfortunately, as we have about a 40-second delta between Guy Swarbrick and Will Inglis. However, very pleased that Will Inglis did try the medium strategy. As we try and get more and more experience with these different cars, it is good to get the driver's feedback on the different tyres, because they obviously play a huge... they're a huge factor in how the car handles, how it behaves, how it goes through a race stint. See the back of the car bouncing a little bit as he heads through Beckett's there. Looks like Will Harper's carrying a very... I mean, all of these cars carry a very stiff setup. That's the case for these saloon cars in racing. We see the back of the car bouncing around a bit. Maybe that's why we've been seeing quite a bit of oversteers. The rear end of the car gets unhappy. The brakes glowing nearly white hot there, coming to the end of the hanger straight. And it's actually only about a 2-second delta now between Guy Swarbrick and Rob Whitney. So maybe Rob Whitney's lost a little bit of pace towards the end, and Guy Swarbrick has found some. If the mistake creeps in, we could see second and third swap position for now, but we will watch Will Harper come through club and onto the Hamilton Straight. He will take the victory of race 1, and he takes the victory of race 2. 2 different cars, 2 different challenges. He's shown great pace throughout this test session, throughout these 2 weekends, and he's done an amazing job in both. So very good job to Will Harper. An immense amount of experience as we watch Rob Whitney and Guy Swarbrick cross the line to take home second and third position. So yeah, huge amount of pace from Will Harper in these sessions. Very good job to him. It'll be a good bit of experience, good bit of knowledge on the cars as we consider them for competition in later use. And we will stay on board to conclude the evening's racing with Will Inglis, who seems to be really struggling with tyres now as he goes very deep under braking there at the chicane. And through club now, we will cross the line with Will Inglis to round out the field. Yeah, he must be struggling with tyres a lot there. Taking home 4th position, Will Inglis. So, a very good weekend then. I think we've learned a lot about these 2 cars, and we've actually had some good racing, even with 4 cars on the grid for both races, which is very good to see. It's good to be back in the commentary box after a little bit of absence, owing to a few technical difficulties. Hopefully, we will not have the same next time round, and I look forward to joining you for the next evening's racing. Until next time, goodbye.